Aaron, have you ever called tech support and asked for help and they asked you, have you tried turning it off and back on again?
Almost every time, Landon. But why did they do that?
I've wondered the same thing too, and I got some thoughts. You want to look into it?
Yeah, let's look into it.
Alright, so have you ever thought about the human body and how they get a nap every night?
A nap, maybe some snacks.
Snacks and naps? Well, your computer can't take the snacks, but it can take naps. And putting it to sleep is not always the right answer either, but by turning it off and on again, you know what that does?
No, what does it do?
Basically, if you think of the processor as a brain, it actually shuts it down. Kills all the processes, everything that it's thinking about, it allows it to truly stop and restart again.
What benefits does it get from that, though?
Same thing as the human body. When you stop and restart again, take your sleep or nap, everything that's going on in the background is now done. Your body gets a chance to decompress and relax. So if we dive into the different parts, being the processors, being the RAM, being all the stuff it's hooked to, your printers, your scanners, all the different devices that are hooked up to, that's just like your body going through things. It's your computer's chance to take a nap and reset.
So essentially clearing out all your temporary files is giving it a fresh start.
Exactly, just like the body. So when somebody says, hey, turn it off and on again, from a big scale things, what you're thinking about is all the processes that you have loaded up into RAM, all the processes that you have going on, it clears those out. If you stop and think about things such as you playing a sport, you're studying your playbooks for football, you have everything going through your head for football. Now you want to get into music. You pick up your guitar, you start studying some sheet music. Well, the next thing you know, mom, grandma, somebody calls you. Well, now all those football plays you have going through your head, plus all that music that you have going through your head, plus that phone call, not everything is going to be thought of clearly. So if I asked you right in the middle of your phone call, what is 10 times 10 plus 4? Would you not have to think a little bit on it?
You'd think a little bit.
You would think, you'd be like, well, that's an easy question. But now you have so many things going on that are fresh in your head that you're studying, processing all that takes a hit, just like a computer's RAM.
Nice. Nice. So essentially, IT is not really just using a cop-out when they tell you to turn it off and again. They actually have a reason. Are there other reasons why you might want to restart your computer instead of just start solving the problem at that point in time?
Absolutely. If you stop and think about your printers, your scanners, you might have other cell phone devices, things hooked up to it. What if those go to sleep? Well, now your computer's trying to talk to them, thinking they're there. They went to sleep. They shut off. It's got to go back and look for them, as well as processes that you tried to kill. You were doing a Word document or a word search. You killed it, but it was too busy doing other things, looking for that printer that you're trying to print that it got hung up on. It's trying to resend to that printer that's sleeping. Some of those documents don't fully close.
So you mean that when I play solitaire at the same point in time as working on a Word document at the same point in time in the video, they can interact together and cause issues?
Absolutely can. Or when you have 300 web pages and tabs open.
Who does that?
You're right, you can do 400. I don't know what the max is, but challenge accepted.
Right?
It's the exact same thing, though. You have your computer doing so many tasks at once that it's trying to remember what's going on, plus learn new things and develop new things. And while, yes, you can grow your RAM like your memory, while, yes, you can expand out, it does help. It absolutely would help it. There's other consequences. Processor, how fast can it think? You could have the world's biggest head and biggest brain, but if you can't think that fast, how good are you going to do?
No, you also run into, I suppose, software developers who maybe their software is not that great.
Absolutely.
There's a lot right there.
That is.
Right? If we take and we think about software and a developer that maybe doesn't do any garbage collection, their processor, could it in fact interact with other software and cause these issues that would be cleared up by a restart?
Absolutely. And then you got to take the age into it, just like the human brain. As the human brain gets older, it doesn't always move as fast. Same thing with the processor. Your processor becomes 5, 10, 15 years old. These new processes, these new developments that are coming on, they may require or ask more than what it's actually physically capable of doing, and that'll slow things down. By restarting, dump all the unnecessary stuff out and allow it to focus on whatever task it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Nice. What about the idea of page file and how memory writes to that over time? From a memory standpoint, memory fills up. You open another application to maybe edit some video. Memory's full at that point in time. The way page file should interact is it should offload into your hard disk, the temporary stuff that you're not using, but it wants to be able to call back later. At which point in time you could get corruption in your page file. You could also get where your hard drive is not necessarily the fastest on the market, and you end up with not being able to recall the data as quickly, and then you end up with that sluggishness of your PC. And I would suppose that restarting would help with that as well.
I believe it absolutely would. Is there anything you would recommend? You know, if you've tried to restart, is there anything you would look at?
Yeah, so first thing from a troubleshooting standpoint, I look at what percentage of memory is used, but also what percentage is actually allocated to tasks. It gives me an idea of how much it's probably offloaded to page file, but also then gives me an idea of is the memory sized correctly for that machine. I also look at what the user is using at the time. Is there any known software that is known to be bad at garbage collecting? You look at anything that utilizes the Java kernel, which is slightly more of a lazy garbage collector. It's going to be more likely to leave stuff in memory that over time is going to take and crash it out. You look at most people use Chrome or Firefox, and if you've ever looked at your task manager of that, you'll see that they're memory hogs. I mean, especially the users that over time never clear their cache, they never take and close their browser tabs. We've seen users with 100+ tabs. Over time, that builds up, and that every time you open Chrome, it's going to reload that data, at which point in time it's going to make use of memory, and it's going to go through that flushing process. Restarting, though it will clear that temporarily, of course, if you never clear your cache, won't help with that all the time, but it's a good first step, right? And so that's why restarting is a good step for IT to take. Now, what happens if we try the restart and it doesn't work? What's next?
That's a really good question right there. One of the things I would say to look at is recommendations for your RAM. What are you using? Like you said, Windows recommends 8 gigs. Not always the best thing though. You gotta realize what processors you're running, what applications you're trying to doing. If you're trying to get big into a video editing or something graphic hog, you have to take into consideration what they're looking for. Same thing with all your different devices, your video cards and stuff. You know, if you're doing a lot of video intensive stuff, you know, you got to take into consideration what they're looking for. Other things to look for are different types of connections you have going on. You know, are you trying to run a 3.0 connection off of a 2.0 connection? Those USBs that fighting for speed will slow things down.
Yeah.
Where are you bottlenecking inside of everything? That's, you know, how efficient is your machine being at doing stuff?
And you had mentioned earlier, you know, the idea of multiple devices and how they interact with memory and the processor in general. They all rely upon, of course, device drivers.
Device updates was the next place I was going with that. You know, is there any updates sitting? Have you done the updates? What are the updates? Because sometimes if you're sitting on an update and you're scared to restart because you have so much work going, what's that update doing? Just sitting there. It's holding a space. It's holding that download that it downloaded. It's halfway installed. It needs the restart to finish.
Yeah.
There's a reason updates want to restart.
Or has the driver by Microsoft releasing an update, has the driver now been basically made obsolete? Right?
Yep.
You run into that where suddenly you're getting artifacting on your computer. You know, it could be that there's just something that got corrupted in memory and a restart's going to solve it. It could be that the device driver no longer knows how to interact as well.
Absolutely.
Which of course could be a topic for another day. But
updates. You can definitely go into updates and what they affect and the roll down the hill method on what updates can and can't do. Yeah.
Right. From a troubleshooting standpoint, of course, if your IT guy tells you to turn it off and on again, it's a great first step. If in fact the problem doesn't go away after that, then there's of course now diving into more troubleshooting steps that of course would take place next. You got any other thoughts on?
I think that's a great intro into why ITs say, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again?
Join us next time. We look forward to doing this some other day with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.